Well, today was day one of the NHS Test and Trace programme, something that was introduced early. It was not supposed to be rolled out until Monday, the 1st of June. It came in yesterday, it was announced. Today was day one of it. Of course, you know the reason why. The reason why is the attempt to move us on from the row which since the last weekend has dominated everything. And I said last night, and I mean it, that the government getting testing and tracing right is vital. It's vital for the country so that we can actually get the economy moving again with confidence, that we can stop a second wave from engulfing us. It's also become absolutely crucial for the survival of this government in terms of not numbers in Parliament, they've got those, but in terms of public confidence and support. They need to get this right. And I did think to myself yesterday, how very strange that you launch a massive new change in the country, but you do it without radio adverts, you do it without TV adverts, you do it without any newspaper adverts. The whole thing was rushed through. And the reason it was rushed through is they knew they had a problem. After the show last night, I went for a walk. And about half an hour into it, I passed the local cricket ground. There were about 25 people lying around on the grass, kids kicking a ball around, wine being drunk, picnic being partaken of. And I walked up and they sort of knew who I was. And I sort of jokingly said, so have you given up on social distancing? Oh, since that bloke went up north, if it's one rule for them and one rule for us, no, the hell with it. We don't care anymore. That's the problem the government has got. It's been losing authority pretty quickly. That's why it needs to move on to test and trace. And yet, we've just witnessed a really, I think, pretty extraordinary 5 p.m. Downing Street press conference. Boris Johnson himself unusually in the chair, watching it all. For us at LBC was our Westminster correspondent, Ben Kentish. Ben, just explain to listeners how extraordinary that conference was.
Nigel, I've never seen anything like it in the whole time that I've been covering politics. Actually, Boris Johnson announced some pretty big changes to the lockdown.
Yes.
But what he did elsewhere, it means that no one wants to talk about that because it was the other events in the press conference that were far more dramatic and unusual. He explicitly stepped in twice to forbid, really, either of the scientific advisors, the two most senior, the Chief Medical Officer, Chris Whitty, the Chief Scientific Advisor, Patrick Vallance, from answering questions about Dominic Cummings. He said it would be unfair to drag them into a political row and stop them answering questions. That was the first astonishing thing.
And just on that, briefly, Ben, of course, this is the first time we've seen Vallance and Whitty for a long while, isn't it?
It's the first time journalists have had the opportunity, Nigel, to question them directly about Dominic Cummings. They were due to give the press conference with Boris Johnson on Sunday. They were in number 10 at the time, but they were dropped, I suspect, for this reason, because either they don't want to comment or number 10 doesn't want them to, or both.
And also, Ben, during the whole crisis, they're the ones that have been the most frank with journalists.
They have. They've been very, very open, both of them. I did think it was quite astonishing when Chris Whitty did get asked very directly about Dominic Cummings. He completely backed up the Prime Minister and said he didn't want to get drawn into politics. But the question wasn't about politics. The question was, is very specific, very direct. Is it safe for people to drive 60 miles in order to test their eyesight? That is a question that is perfectly relevant in, I think many people will feel, for the Chief Medical Officer of England, and twice he refused to answer it. And Nigel, there was one further thing that I couldn't quite believe, I must say, because in response to a totally unrelated question, it was a question from The Sun, which was, if we can now go and have a barbecue in someone's garden, can we stay over if we set up a tent? Boris Johnson, this is a question totally unrelated to Dominic Cummings, replied saying this: we are not saying that people should be free to travel across the country to stay in other people's houses.
No.
That's the response from the Prime Minister.
Gosh. So really, a quite extraordinary attempt to close down effectively the press conference. So we can, from Monday, I mean, look, there are no rules. Everyone's ignoring what the government's saying now anyway. I've seen that myself. But from Monday, groups of up to 6, are allowed to meet and say.
We will make America great again.